Hello, all of you students that are just dialing in. Welcome to our event. We'll get started in just a few moments. We want to give a few more people time to jump in. We see people are coming into the waiting room, so we will get started in just a few moments. In the meantime, we'd love it if you would come into your screen and let us see who you are so we'll know who we have. It's not a requirement, but we think it'd be great.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mr. Nash.
Hello.
Where are you coming from, Brandon?
I'm in Mr. Alfonso's office right now. I'm just in
Okay. Not far.
Hello, Marie.
Yeah.
Hello there. I'm just checking in to make sure we get kicked off here. Good to see everyone.
Hi, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for everybody for collaborating on this. I'm very excited. We all are.
Likewise. Likewise.
We too. Thank you for facilitating that relationship.
That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, we will continue to monitor the waiting room, but I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time that have joined us thus far. So let me first say hello to everyone and thank you for joining and participating with us for our Student Leadership Conference in the virtual fashion. We like to do these every summer. Those of you guys that are part of the student CPT chapters that we have across the country, you know that we have historically done a leadership conference in person, but due to pandemic related things, we decided to go virtual last year and this year, and we are looking forward to getting back together in person on next year. My name is Alfonso Alexander. I'm the president of the NASBA Center for the Public Trust, which is the parent company that sponsors the Student Center for Public Trust, the organization that has brought you guys together today. We have a wonderful, wonderful presentation lined up for you today, one that I think will give you an opportunity to utilize and add some tools to your personal tool belt in terms of your pursuit for ethical leadership. So we're really excited about our presenter. And she has already said that she wants this to be interactive. So we encourage you to use the chat feature or raise your hand and ask questions, because the engagement is really what makes things rich when we have our experiences with the Center for the Public Trust and the Student CPT. So at this time, I am going to kick things over to Ashley Stoker. Some of you may know Ashley, and you may have known her as Ashley Mativier if you've known her beyond 2 weeks, but she is now Ashley Stoker. I'm going to kick it over to Ashley, and she will give some further instructions and introduce our wonderful speaker. So welcome, Ashley, to the microphone.
Thank you very much, Alfonso. Hey, everyone. For those that I don't know, I am Ashley Stoker. I am the Student Programs Manager for the NASBA Center for the Public Trust. And one of my favorite aspects of my job is putting together events like this for you to meet our awesome professionals and really get to learn about ethics and leadership and what that looks like. And so you can take all that information and transfer that into your careers one day. Today, you guys are in for a treat. We have Dean Lisa Ordonez from the Rady School of Management at UC San Diego. She was previously at the University of Arizona for over 25 years, and her background and research is in ethical decision-making, behavioral ethics, and so I'm really excited for her to talk to you guys today. She is going to be speaking with you about goals gone wild and some of the maybe unintended consequences of that goal setting. So I will go ahead and kick the floor over to Dean Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And, you know, I really appreciate this organization. This is important issue. So let me go ahead and just get started. And again, yes, please put comments in chat or just raise your hand. I'd love to be able to stop because it makes things much more natural. By the way, that's a picture of my beautiful building. I'm now almost 2 years in my role as dean at UC San Diego. And I'm trying to advance my slides. There we go. Okay, so there is a whole area of research in the field of management called goal setting, and hundreds, if not thousands, of papers that show that goals in organizations can increase effort, persistence, performance, and those that are specific and challenging are more effective than simply telling people do your best. And this is probably one of the most robust findings, or quote here from some people who've worked in the area, that this is very strong finding. Well, so goals are good, right? Well, my research is actually kind of really the first in about 40 years of research to say, oh, hold on a minute, goals can cause some problems, as the two little guys here playing soccer. Okay, so this was a paper that I wrote, actually, the title Goals Gone Wild, which is thank goodness to my husband, who's the marketer, who thought of the title, because I actually was quoted on NPR, and I actually was interviewed on NPR, but it was the week before, quoted on NPR Marketplace. And the speaker said the title, Goals Gone Wild, snickered and then moved on, but they didn't say it was University of Arizona. I'm like, hey guys, that's my paper. But the point of this paper was really to draw attention to the fact that goals can cause some unintended consequences. And so my audience for this paper, it's actually actually, did you send it to the students? Because I sent it, but this paper is written for working managers.
It's in their virtual swag bag. They can click a link and access it.
Oh, great. So, because believe me, academic research can be very dry. I don't even like reading my own papers. They put me to sleep. But the point was to draw attention to this fact that you can't just have goals and expect everything to work out perfectly. And so that was our goal, was to draw that attention to the problems that goals can cause. It called for more research. We weren't trying to say, don't use goals. That would frankly be impossible. They're so entwined in organizations. There's no way to undo that. What we were trying to say is, be more cautious and put in some safeguards. And at the end of the paper, there is a set of problems that goals can cause, one of which, of course, is unethical behavior that we'll focus on today. And the evidence in the paper was both research, academic research, but also kind of key news article stories where these cause major problems in organizations. Okay, so there is a dark side of goal setting. Yeah, it can increase productivity, focus, and persistence, but it can also put on mental blinders. The whole point is goals focus, and then you miss other things. I have heard the phrase from someone said, well, my manager says, I don't care how you do it, just meet your numbers. And that is that focus on goals really can help, can get people to justify any behavior. And so this can be problematic and of course lead to unethical behavior. All right, I'm going to show a quick little video. It's not very long. I'll kind of do a voiceover, but try to do what the video is asking you to do, and then we'll debrief. Oops, here we go. Oops, sorry. I don't know what happened there. There you go. Sorry about that. Everybody get 10? Maybe? Okay, there's one more test. Count the guys jumping. Get 20? But did you notice that the stall changed colors? This is really what was going on. See, it's blue when we start. And by the time they're done jumping, it's green. But even more important, did you notice the disappearing basketball net in the first clip? There's the basketball net. You're busy counting the passes. And bye-bye basketball net. So, what does all this mean? First of all, I told you this was a selective attention video. What was the point? The point was when you are focused on a task so intently, you don't notice other things like disappearing basketball nets. And that is the reason why goals work. They focus your attention on a task, and sometimes you can't see other things. And that's really one of the sources of the problems of goals and can lead to unethical behavior in organizations. So it's hard to see, but how many, I'm going to check the chat here. How many of you got caught? Anybody see the disappearing basketball net? That's what I want to know. No, Delaney says no. Tell me, anybody? Brandon, no. Ashley, no. Okay. No. Right. And I'll tell you, you can play, it's on the YouTube, you can find it, watch it again. It was there. It's not like we put it in at the video clips after. It was there the whole time. It's just, again, the goals, the task focused your attention. Okay. All right, so let me give you some anecdotes. Actually, some of these are more recent and are not in the Goals Gone Wild paper because these examples chalk up every year. There's more and more high profile examples of where goals can lead to problems. In this case, this one isn't necessarily unethical, but it shows you what goals can do. Goals can narrow your focus, just like the selective attention video. And years back, if you remember, GM basically went bankrupt. And what were they doing? They were focusing on getting 29% market share in the auto industry. And they even wore buttons that had 29. They were so focused on getting that one thing done. What they did was they basically gave away cars. They gave away, heavy discounts, 0% financing, to the point where they almost met the goal of 29%, but they did it at the risk of their company and lost profitability. So that's one thing. But I want to talk more about the issue of ethical behavior. And to me, no management talk is complete without a Dilbert strip, if you've ever seen him. We have the boss here in the first frame saying, our goal is to have bug-free software, and we're going to pay $10 for every bug you find and fix. And why are the employees so excited? Because they are going to write the bugs that they then fix. And if that sounds crazy to you, I could go on for an hour explaining all the situations where this general situation occurs in organizations. You've got to be very careful with incentive structures. The main point here is goals can motivate unethical behavior, and we need to be very careful. And I'm trying to keep track of chat here. Okay. All right. So let me give you some more examples here. Unfortunately, goals impact not just for-profit organizations. Here is the VA, which is a government organization. And years back, if you remember, the VA had an awful scandal that was actually ground zero was at the Phoenix VA when I was at University of Arizona. What happened was they had a problem. They had, and of course, obviously the VA takes care of our vets, people who served our country and needed health care. And they had 115-day waiting list. That was just too long for our vets waiting for healthcare. And so they decided to have a goal setting system. And actually, they frankly set up two, but they had a goal setting, and one of their goals was to get that waiting list down to 14 days. That was their goal. And I put actual in quotes. Their actual achievement was a 24-day wait list. And why it's in quotes is they never really even met that, because what they were doing is they were creating secret shadow lists. They were kicking people off the list. So the list looked like they got down to 24 days of waiting. Unfortunately, this had real impact. At this one Phoenix site alone, they accredited this process of kicking people off the list, shadow list, resulting in 40 dead and 114 people further waiting for care. So pretty awful outcomes of this behavior. And it led to the head of VA had to step down because of it. All right, and I see some chat comments here. I feel that so many instances, this is Delaney, so many instances in the workplace do lead to unethical behavior. Do you have any suggestions on how to avoid unethical behavior while still encouraging meeting companies' goals? Absolutely, I will get to that, Delaney, at the end and ask some more questions, but that is what's the point of finding problems if we don't have a fix? So I have some suggestions, and maybe we can talk about that a bit more as well. And Rebecca, oh boy, Rebecca, I work at the VA, and unfortunately this is true. Wow, I'd love to chat more about what they've done in the meantime. Thank you for your comments. Okay, so you may have heard of the Volkswagen situation, which to me is probably one of the most egregious examples of goal setting leading to unethical behavior, because it required collusion. Some of these situations, you can almost see how the goal itself could lead to individuals trying to do their best, not meeting the goal and fudging a bit to meet a goal, but on an individual level. This required a team of engineers to collaborate. It's kind of mind-boggling. So in the US, we have strict EPA standards, but they wanted to meet those. That was the goal. They had to meet that while maintaining desired horsepower. So American customers want a car that has get up. So they were trying to balance this. They also had a goal of being the biggest car company in the world. So what did they do? Again, there's documentaries of this, and it is unbelievable. But they created a situation in which the car would pass emission standards in the lab. There's a setup where you put a car on these kind of wheels, so it churns and runs but stays in place, right? And they hook up and test the emissions. But when the car is on the open road, that little system that kept the emissions low churns off, and regular emissions then come out of the car, up to 40 times higher than what the tests were in the lab. The only way they found this out, and I think it was actually, gosh, I should know this. I think it's a group of Virginia college students, I forget which University of Virginia, who came up with I don't know why they even knew this was necessary, came up with a way to do a test on the open road, and that's how they found it. Amazing. So all of this to meet these goals and to be the biggest car company in the world, the CEO had to resign. There's billions of fines and lawsuits. I'm frankly surprised they're still in business. Massive recall. But they did meet their goal for about a month. They were the largest car company in the world. So crazy example there. Wells Fargo is probably the most recent massive example of goal setting, and the CEO even came out and stated it was the goal setting is the problem. So what happened during this time from 2011 to 2016, they had a goal setting process they called 8 is great. 8 being 8 separate accounts, either savings, checkings, credit cards, and such. Well, I don't know about you. I actually bank with Bank of America. I have, I have kids and my husband and my family. We have maybe 5 with savings accounts and checkings accounts, but 8, pushing people to create. So what happened was these tellers were being pushed, by their managers. Their managers were being pushed by regional managers who literally called them on an hourly basis, asking for their numbers and pushing them to meet these goals and increase the number of accounts, to the point where the tellers and the bank managers, or the business managers, would sign people up for accounts that they never approved, credit cards. And then the customers started seeing charges for accounts that they didn't even know that they existed. And so at first, Wells Fargo would claim that these were a few bad apples. And then they announced they would stop the goal setting process because they realized that was frankly what was really causing these problems, not just a handful of people. And it's not even that this is the only financial institution. I actually was interviewed by BBC Canada, and there was a Canadian bank that was under the same situation. So this is, believe me, happening quite a bit in the financial industry. Okay, so I'll hit some highlights here. Why is this going on? Well, one theory, and here's where the psychology comes in, says that by Barsky, says that goals can actually lead to unethical behavior for 2 reasons. One, that make it harder to recognize unethical behavior, again, kind of like the disappearing basketball net, because you're so focused on meeting your numbers, and it becomes easier to rationalize unethical behavior. And you hear, phrases like, well, everybody's doing it. And my boss said, meet my numbers. I don't care how you do it. That's code for just meeting my numbers by any means possible. The other reason why this happens, and it turns out there's multiple reasons, is that goals can make you tired, which can lead to cheating. Here's another interesting theory in psychology, is that we as human beings try to, we as human beings are wired to get the most we can. The economic man or woman or person is trying to take care of themselves. But because of social norms and being in a community, we've learned that we can't just go take money off someone's desk or take someone's lunch out of the fridge. We have to behave properly. And so we're holding it in. We're keeping we see someone left a $20 bill out of their desk. We may look at it, but we have learned to walk past. That's not my money. But when you're tired, that resistance is lower, and you're more likely to cause some problem, to do some things unethically. And actually, I did a study a few years ago that showed setting goals and multiple rounds of it gets you tired, and the goals itself exasperated this cheating behavior. A little bit of more psychology, if any of you have ever studied anything called prospect theory. Actually, Danny Kahneman got the Nobel Prize for his research, and decision making was one of my professors at Berkeley. And this is a famous utility curve for prospect theory. I won't go into all the nuts and bolts, but basically, previous to prospect theory, economic theory said basically it's just really this upper quadrant, that you value money based on how much money you have in your overall, and at some point more money is better, and then at some point it flattens out, and you're not as thrilled with 10 extra dollars because you're a multimillionaire. Their research showed that there is a difference between gains and losses, and we can change how people think about $10. Is it a loss or a gain by how you change reference points? And when you're in the domain of losses, notice this curve is much steeper, which means a loss of $10 is much more painful than a gain of $10 is pleasurable. Why does that matter? Well, if you look at this and lay on this the idea of goal setting, where the reference point is a goal, meeting your goal is great, but beyond that, you kind of getting a few extra $100 in sales isn't as nice as being $100 in sales before meeting the goal, because you haven't met the goal. And what we argue is, and the research on prospect theory says, when you are in the domain of losses, you're more risk-taking. You will do things to get you to that goal or a reference point. They said reference point. If you change that word to goal, then it makes sense. You have not met your quarterly goal, and so you're going to do whatever you've got to, some people, not all, to meet that goal. So it's just, again, another theory for why is it that goals can lead to unethical behavior, because it possibly encourages you to take more risks. Okay, I will get into all these details, but we tested this out with a scenario. We asked people what they thought. We said we have two people, Eric and Paul, who have to state billable hours. And one will earn a bonus if they meet at least 800 hours for the quarter. And Eric is told just to do his best. They are both 68 hours short. Who's more likely to overstate their billable hours to meet the goal? And of course, people think, and this is just their opinions, and the whole point of this was just really to get people's opinions and see if they thought the way we thought, that they in fact thought Paul, either when he had a goal that would be get him a bonus, or even if he just had a goal with no bonus, that's what we call the mirror goal, was much more likely to lie to say they met the goal when they had not. So these scenarios got us, kind of evidence that yes, in fact, people think those with unmet goals are more likely to lie and cheat than someone with a met goal, than someone being told to do your best. And here's the other thing, and I'll go back. If you're farther away from the goal, it doesn't even matter cheating. You have to cheat so much that it's too much. We found that you're much more likely to cheat if you're close to the goal. So if you're even cheating is going to be so ridiculous you give up. But really close to the goal, you're much more likely to cheat. So this gives you some ideas, again, of the context in an organization in which people will cheat. Okay. How are we doing? Okay, so how did I study this? I'm not a field researcher, although, by the way, you guys are accountants. There is research showing that, there was an accounting, I should look this up. There was an accounting study that looked at gains and losses and in terms of reporting for taxes, and found, in fact, that people are more likely to cheat if they are expected to pay taxes. So there is research in accounting that these things apply. The way I study goal setting is in the lab. So I'll show you an example of what I did. I gave people 9 words, Scrabble 7 words, but 7 letters. I gave people 9, I'm sorry, talking here. I gave people 7 letters and told them they had one group was told that they had a goal. We gave them these 7 letters and gave them some rules on how to use them. And then after they did they made as many words as they could with using the rules that we gave them. We gave them a Scrabble dictionary and said, check your work. What we wanted to do was to see how, if they checked their own work, what, and committed to how many words that they actually created, would they lie to meet a goal? And so what we did is we came up with a percentage of times someone overstated or understated the number of words they created. Notice that very few people understated the number of words. Now, by the way, how did I know they lied? We actually had a workbook. There were several trials, and there was an answer sheet. They filled out the answer sheet, handed that in for payment. What they didn't know is that I had them put the workbook in a recycle bin, but I had a technique for matching them. I didn't know which student had lied, but I did know I could check their work and I could find out afterwards, did they overstate or understate? Well, it turns out people are hardly ever understate. They don't miss a word and say, oh, I got 8 when I actually got 9. No, that rarely happened. But what happened was those who had a goal, either a goal without money or a goal with money, were much more likely to say, well, glurb is a word, and I'm going to count it, and that means I met my 9 words and met the goal. This is a percentage of subjects overstating their performance. Again, you can see here very few times when they're told just to do your best, much higher percentage when given a goal. So, summary of these results are stated here. The interesting thing is the goal in this case, many research studies show goals get people working harder. We didn't see any evidence of that in this case, probably because the task was really fast, but just having a goal did not get you working harder. So that didn't happen here. There was unethical effort, people stating more, lying more and saying they met the goal. And then lying, we did see happen much more likely when you were 1 word or 2 words short, not when you were 8 words short. When you got closer to the goal, because you could just make one little tiny lie and still meet the goal, versus when there were so many more words you'd have to just absolutely make up. You weren't likely to do that. But here's the funniest finding of the study is, put here, people may be liars, but they're not thieves. So they, even though they wrote that they had made 9 words and met the goal, when they didn't just blatantly circle met the goal and take the money, or they didn't just take the money, because they could have just taken the money because it was all done individually, put the money back in an envelope, handed in. Nobody just took all the money and left. So I thought that was hilarious. But that actually fits in with research. By the way, there's another theory here that I think I will talk about it, that's really important, that says we don't just cheat because we do a mental calculation of we're going to get caught or not caught, because these people could not have gotten caught. But we also have to worry about our own self-perception. We don't cheat sometimes when we can, because we don't want to think of ourselves as liars and cheats. So, okay, so one of the questions was, how can we reduce the negative impact of goal setting? And I had a very industrious doctoral student come to me one day and said, hey, I think we can undo this mistake, this goal setting impact. And he said, by using something called priming. And I'd heard of priming. I was a psych student. Priming, to me, before this, always felt kind of magical. It is the following: you do a task, but you prime people by not subliminal, but just unconscious suggestions in some way or form, and get people to do something differently because of this unconscious suggestion. And I'll tell you how we did it in this case. And this picture here is of interest because we had at University of Arizona, we had these ethics hotline called Good Cats. They're the Wildcats, the Good Cats hotline. And they had a picture of the fire alarm. Why was that important? Not only to call attention to something, but I don't know if this happens at your universities, but we actually had to post TAs near the fire alarms during exams, because those students who had maybe not studied as much as they thought they should and weren't prepared for the exam would sometimes go and pull the fire alarm, which would get everybody out of the building, which would make them have to delay the test to another day. So both of these, it had some very unconscious implications here. So what did we do? So there was some research, and I won't go into the details here, but that focus on conscious ethical priming. So having people recall the 10 Commandments got them to be more ethical. But subconscious priming can work. So what we decided to do is the following: do some subconscious priming. Then we think that brings attention to their standards, their personal ethical standards, and then that would change their ultimate behavior. I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead and show you what we did here. What we did was we had a lab experiment with 335 undergrads, and we assigned people to one of 12 conditions. Everybody was given $5 no matter what they did, so there was no money attached to performance. That's important because some people think we just pay people for doing something, you're going to get more of it and more aligned, but we wanted to focus on the goal itself. And we had all these conditions. Most important for this case is the ethical prime, an unethical prime, and a neutral prime. And let me explain what the primings were here. So we had a sentence unscrambling task. So for the ethical condition, you see those words there. There was 5 words. They only needed to use 4 to create a sentence. Do virtuous, yellow, always things. They unscrambled that to always do virtuous things. And notice that many of those items in the list of 20 sentences, not all, you didn't want to make it too obvious, but about 12 of those sentences had to do with being ethical. And the unethical condition, we couldn't do as many. I think it was 8 of the 20 people noticed were people doing unethical things. The money was embezzled. The neutral condition had nothing to do with ethics. Wash the old shoes unless you think, cleanliness is close to godliness. But other than that, these sentences had nothing to do with ethics. And we tested these ahead of time. So here's the big question. What do you think? Do you think ethical primes will increase or decrease unethical behavior? Yes or no? How about the unethical prime? Here's the big question. If we prime people with unethical sentences, do you think that's going to increase or decrease unethical behavior? Think about it. I asked this of my son, who at the time was about 15, and he said, well, it's going to increase your ethical behavior. And I'll tell you what we predicted ahead of time, which makes it fun. We actually predicted both ethical and unethical primes would lead to more ethical behavior, less cheating. Why? Because you're subtly being primed, not consciously, not subliminally, but not consciously, about ethical things, getting you to think about your own ethical standards. So whether it's ethical or unethical, hearing about ethical thoughts gets you pulling up your standards, and then you're less likely to cheat. Let's see if that happened. Now, what's the task? Task is, this has been used a lot in the field, it's called a matrix task, where your instructions are to circle the 2 numbers that add exactly to 10. It's not a hard task, but you know when you've got it right. And so it's not like where we had to have people actually check their words with a Scrabble dictionary. But you could fudge it a little bit. We gave a number that was close in here, but not exactly the proper number to add to 10. You could potentially have circled the 4.51 and the 5.84, for instance. Now, the goal was set out of 20 of these on a sheet, get 12 of 20. That's a pretty hard goal, but about 10% of people can make it without working too hard, but it would require you really working hard. We had students, they weren't, and one condition, they weren't being monitored. They knew that they couldn't be found out. Another group, they thought their work was going to be checked. So two different groups. So let's look at the results. Here is the group that knew or thought we were going to check the results, so they were being monitored. The number in instances, so very low when they're told just do your best versus a very high goal. The blues very low, but the red's fairly low too, a little higher but fairly low. And it's been so long I can't remember if these are significant differences, but fairly low because people know or think they're going to get checked, even though the high goal led to a little more cheating. But the important part is look what happens when they think you can't, and they knew it because it was true, cannot find their cheating. So look at these here. The big difference you'll notice is the neutral group compared to the ethical and unethical crime. The neutral group cheated. They weren't going to be monitored. There was no thoughts of ethical behavior in their head, and they were more likely to cheat, and much more so if they had a high goal. But look at ethical and unethical crimes. The number of cheating instances are drastically down. So in fact, for both, it's not like ethical priming got people to decrease cheating and unethical priming got them to increase cheating. So this was our evidence to say priming works. Now, let me go here. Can we do ethical priming in organizations? Well, we kind of do these subtle things all the time. Posters on the wall, ethical, in these motivational posters, right? Honesty is the best policy, do the right things. Yeah, maybe that works. I don't think to one of the questions that was asked, I think it was the lady, that's going to be our primary source of decreasing cheating. Of course, monitoring works, but it's expensive, and employees hate it, but it happens. And so, for instance, if you run a call center, they monitor the calls, they monitor people's behavior. So that does work. Again, it's expensive. So I'm going to give you a suggestion at the end here of ways to, frankly, increase performance without depending too much on goals itself. Okay. I'm not going to go into these, but basically I've done a lot of studies showing multiple goals over time impact and increase cheating. I actually have a study on the slippery slope, not about goal setting, but you can get people doing small cheating and then a lot of big cheating getting on the slippery slope. And emotions can affect unethical behavior. So people who are angry are more likely to be unethical than people who feel guilty. Again, I don't know that it's a good management technique to make people feel guilty, but having angry employees can get people doing things that maybe you don't want. Ashley asked, is there any research that suggests that there are some industries more like to cheat than others? Wow, that is a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I will give you, we can talk about the kind of elements. And again, here's actually, I didn't really explain this, but the field of behavioral ethics as a kind of, as a guiding theme is that ethical behavior, yes, while there are some people who will never cheat or lie, I mean, you probably have a family member or you yourself might be this way, never lie or cheat, even little tiny lies to help people's feelings. And then there's the pathological liars who will lie for frankly no reason at all. Except for those extremes, the research in ethical, the behavioral ethics suggests that it's context that matters. So creating context. So within the same industry, you could certainly see different companies with different contexts and different structures have very different unethical behavior. But I would tell you, my husband actually was a bank manager at Wells Fargo. long before the recent scandal, but he said he saw this stuff happening all the time. And he says, frankly, it's in the banking system. And this is where, and I know for some people, it's a dirty word, but government regulation comes in. And of course, all of you are familiar with Sarbanes-Oxley. And, you know, I think the jury is out, or maybe the jury's back in, and it doesn't work all that well, unfortunately. But these types of regulation are important to level the playing field in industries. So if they're, you know, having something like Sarbanes-Oxley says everybody's got to go through these audits with an independent auditor. So this is important, important procedures, because if in banking industry one bank didn't use goal setting, their performance probably would lag, and they would probably eventually have to leave the market. This is a bit, actually I've been on a expert witness testimony for the insurance industry, and boy, that's an ugly situation in which decreasing costs, i.e. not fulfilling claims, is a great way to be more profitable. So, you know, it used to be, for instance, in the 1970s, those people who fulfilled, who processed claims were completely separated in different states from people who sold the actual accounts. Now they're all blended together, and there's a lot of pressure on those who fulfill claims to reject them as much as possible so that the company can make money, which is awful. But that's where government regulation could be really helpful. So thank you for that question, Ashley. Let's see. Okay, and I want to give some time here, some individual goals. Can this impact you? Yes, it can impact you personally, so be very careful. My favorite paper, it's called What the Hell Effect. If you've ever like said, I'm going to eat only 1,500 calories today, that's my goal for the day, and you go over it, you realize, oh, I ate 1,600 calories, what the hell, I'll eat a couple more donuts, right? So that can cause problems. Unhealthy adherence to goals. If I was actually training for a sprint triathlon, and I was getting up at 5 a.m. to work out every morning, and one night my husband was extra chatty, and my first thought was to just tell him to be quiet, and I realized, you know, I have other goals, like having a good relationship with my husband. I need to just sleep in tomorrow. Note here is, goals can help motivate you to get started, but they don't motivate you during the process. So if you are working out, eating healthy, find other things that keep you interested. The goal itself is not going to work. But I can see I'm running out of time. I'm going to, this is in the paper, what to do with different, how to remediate problems with goal setting. I'm going to hit the highlights here, and Ashley, I can send you these. I'm happy for you to send them out so people can process them. Monitor the what and how. Here's what a lot of people do in performance evaluations. Not only measuring did people meet their goal, but how they met their goal. Hearing from the employees. If you've met your goal, but your employees are just exhausted from the mistreatment, then maybe that's not a good thing. I put here my color by numbers. Do you ever remember that? I think these are coming back. You can't use goal setting as managing by the numbers. You can't just look at the numbers. You've got to manage. You've got to know what people are, what motivates them, and help connect them. My husband, actually working at Wells Fargo, had an employee who was just awful. It was a teller, and he was just terrible. And he knew he was smart, and he pulled him aside, and he was like, well, what's the deal? I know you're smart. And he goes, well, I actually want to be in private banking, which is a high level in the banking industry. But I don't want to be a teller. And my husband was, well, you can't get into that training program without my approval. So guess what? If you're going to do this, you're going to be out. How about you give me your hardest work for the next 6 months, and then I'll recommend you. Suddenly he was a changed person when he found out what motivated him. So you got to know your employees. You can't just go by the numbers on the sheet. Intrinsic motivation. Again, I don't have time to get into the details here, but this is the best thing of all. Get people to want to do the job in itself with or without goals. So focus on play, getting people to enjoy the work that they do. Help let them have some autonomy in who they work with and when they work on things. Don't micromanage. Help them understand the purpose of what they do. And then give them ways to grow and elevate an organization potential. And there's some books here if you're interested. Both of them actually cite my research, and I think they're really helpful to understand how do we tap into intrinsic motivation, which is the most powerful motivation of all. And warning labels for goal setting, and I am going to leave it here for questions. Oh, sorry, I went a little over, but there was a lot of content here. Any questions? I'm gonna stop share. How do I do that? Oh, here we go. All right, so questions.
Students, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you're more comfortable typing your question in the chat feature, that's fine too. That was a wonderful presentation. I thought the priming section was very interesting. Just the psychology behind all of that. Thank you so much. That was really great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Professor Ordonez, I love your commentary around intrinsic motivation, because I agree that really is the only true way to motivate someone to create change and to keep them engaged. Do you have any recommendations on articles or books related to specifically the intrinsic motivation?
Those two books that are there, the Prime to Perform, well, there's Drive, which was before, and that's a really interesting book. It gives you great information about how we think sometimes more money makes you work harder, and in fact, sometimes it can make it worse. And then Prime to Perform, it kind of takes Drive to a whole new level and really focuses on not only those three: play, purpose, potential, but also focuses on the things that are negative motivators. And they talk about inertia. You're there in the job just because you're there and you don't even know why. Emotional stress, the boss yelling at you, and financial stress. Those things demotivate you, and you need to find ways to minimize those.
Very interesting.
Excellent.
Let's see. Thank you for your comments. Okay, Delaney, that was a great presentation. Thank you. Do you think setting company goals without numeric goals better, or is it just depend? Well, okay, yes. There's a couple things we want to think about with goal setting in organizations. First of all, I think it's become much more the goal setting du jour, which is something called cascading goals, where you say, we have a 10% cut in costs, and then you just cascade them down through the organization. And may not be exactly everybody gets 10%, but you cascade them down without truly thinking about, should we be cutting marketing by 10% and R&D by 10% when they could actually be helping us with our revenues? So you've got to be careful with that. But non-numeric goals, you're going to get into a situation where you're back to the do your best and they're not motivating. But here's one set type of goal that can possibly be help your organization, which is called learning goals. Meaning if you have people have a goal for, say, 5 new certificates training over the year, those type of things don't get you into a situation as often the research finds as these what's called performance goals, meeting your sales numbers for the quarter. So finding ways to get people the knowledge to do the job well can help. It can help decrease cheating, and then frankly, it increases potential, which is a intrinsic motivator. So great question.
I was gonna jump in and share. I spent almost 20 years in the insurance industry. So when you were talking about the banking and then flipped over to insurance, absolutely, I was on the corporate and on the sales side. But one thing that I did, I had a team of salespeople that were not motivated by number goals. Of course, that's what they always push down in the insurance industry. So I made the goals personal. And I asked them, what is it that you want to achieve this year? Is it a vacation? Is it a new car? And then wrap the goal around that for them, and found that to be probably the best motivator possible. Even though behind the goal was the number, it was still something that they bought into, kind of to the intrinsic goal. And then also having some of those motivators around the office where we actually wrote on the wall right in front of their desk and had them take pictures of the vacation place that they wanted to go to that year. So
that was exactly right. That's, the example of my husband finding out that this person really wanted to be in another job, and then he tied the performance goals to getting him a recommendation for the personal banking training program. So exactly right. So you have a natural sense for, finding out again what your employees want, and what's going to be motivating. And everybody's different. I mean, some people like, praise, some people like money, some people like achievement, and recognition. So, everybody's different, and you can't just simply have, it'd be great if we could boil everything down to spreadsheets, but people are not spreadsheets. They don't fit easily on them. And my personal example phrase is, management would be easy, except for the people. People are, and for me, that makes it fun. Even the difficult people, it makes it fun. But the point is, and you as accountants have to be really careful in organizations to know, you're looking at systems. One example that was in the Goals Gone Wild paper is a company that had sales at this time. This is how old the example is. Hard drives that were about the size and weight of bricks. So it was quite a while ago in the 80s. They had these bonuses tied to sales, and literally the individuals in the company were shipping boxes from one place to another of bricks to pretend they made these sales so they can get their quarterly bonuses. So when you tie finances to meeting of goals and financial rewards, you're creating a recipe for potential disaster. And you as accountants have to be aware of those type of processes to know that the sales are actually happening in the way they should be.
Well, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. And as you can see, our students really enjoyed it. So thank you. We really appreciate it. Everyone, give a round of applause, a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much again. And students, we encourage you, if you are a student CPT member, to join us for the 1 o'clock session. This is going to be focused on student CPT recruitment, recruiting lifelong leaders. And of course, we encourage you to join us for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we have Ryan Hirsch of Surgeon, who's going to be speaking to you guys about how technology influences ethical decision making. And then on Wednesday, we have Alfonso Alexander, who's going to dive into strengths-based leadership. And remember, if you haven't already, you're eligible for a free access code to the Clifton Strength Finders assessment. So just shoot me an email if you have not yet received that. But thank you so much again. We have just really enjoyed your presentation.
Great, and I'll send you my PDF and my slides, Ashley.
Please do, and I will add that to the virtual swag bag, students. You'll be able to access that.
Wonderful. Well, good luck.
Your day. Thank you.